Would you paint a gray object using a gray color? Most people do, and that's why their artwork can sometimes look flat and lifeless. In this lesson, we'll explore a more painterly approach. You'll see how gray can sound completely different, from cool lavender tones to warm beige browns. This is the 5th episode of the Wooden Door with Floral Accents series, where we recreate traditional marker techniques in Procreate using digital brushes. In this video, you'll work on the wall objects, learn how to analyze colors from a reference and adapt them into your own palette, and explore how to place shadows to keep the composition balanced. After this lesson, you'll be able to notice color nuances more easily and build richer, more expressive palettes for your illustrations. If you enjoy the idea of bringing real marker techniques into digital illustration, subscribe to the channel. All previous lessons are already there, and the link to the marker brushes is in the description below. Let's begin with the more contrasting objects on the wall. Start with the mailbox. Instead of using a neutral gray, pick a grayish lavender shade from the V palette and fill in the surface of the mailbox. Feel free to leave tiny gaps where different elements touch. These open spots make the drawing look more relaxed and sketchy. Then pick the darkest color from the palette. Even if the shade isn't a perfect match, a little variation is fine. What really matters here is creating contrast. You can add a few details, some dots or short strokes to give it more character. For the object above, choose a calmer, warmer tone. Go to the E palette with its earthy colors and pick a shade from there. If the tone looks too dark, just reduce the pressure to get a lighter shade. That's one of the nice things about these brushes. Make sure the small objects vary in tone too. A bit lighter in some areas, a bit darker in others. Next comes the dark brown panel on the wall. Choose a matching tone from the E palette. You can still use brush number 1, but the brad tip is more practical for rectangular areas, thanks to its sharper, geometric stroke shape. But you can absolutely keep using brush number 1, especially if you don't want to interrupt the flow by switching brushes. If you find it difficult to control the edges, try reducing the brush size. The last few lines can be drawn more freely, with that relaxed, sketchy feel. Pick a deeper, cooler color and apply it inside the rectangle as an irregular organic patch. Don't try to make everything too neat or precise. Instead, aim for a lively play of color patches. Let's move on to the pots. Pick a brown shade from the Earth Tones palette or a warmer one with a reddish undertone. Paint only the parts of the pot that are visible between the leaves. The rest will be covered with foliage later. There's only a small section of the second pot showing. Of course, you could put the foliage on a separate layer, but in traditional marker sketching, this is the natural order to work in. Let's go back to the base layer with the wall fill and work on its left side. As usual for wall areas, use the brad tip brush. In the reference, you can see some beige tones, so pick a beige shade with a slight greenish tint. That same color was already used on the right side of the wall, so for variety, let's try something from the green palette. The tones in the reference are a bit different, but feel free to tweak the saturation and add a touch of creative interpretation. Continue working in the same technique as in the lesson 3, layering abstract color patches to build a rich, expressive surface. Add shorter, more fragmented strokes toward the outer edges. This helps the color transition gently and visually blend out into the white of the paper. It's time to bring in some warm notes. Pick the first color from the second half of the earth tones palette and add it to the lower part of the wall. It's normal to feel unsure about a color choice, but those small experiments often lead to unexpectedly harmonious combinations. The result may not match the reference exactly, but that's part of the freedom and joy of painting. At the same time, it's important to stay mindful of the reference and keep it as a guiding point. Let's add another shade from the E palette to enrich the wall and give it more color variety. Add this shade to the wall fill. It pairs beautifully with the previous greenish strokes. Build the area around a play of warm and cool tones. Even though this color might seem unusual for the wall, it looks especially nice next to the greens. Try to keep the broad tip brush the same size as in the previous strokes. In traditional marker sketching, the width of the chisel tip can't be changed, so every stroke made with it stays consistent. Use vertical strokes to show the direction of the wall plane. This repeats the same principle of following the form with your strokes, something we practiced back in the previous lessons. Toward the edges of the composition, the strokes can be looser and more dynamic. Soften the ends with the broad tip grunge brush to create a smooth transition into the white paper area. Feel free to rotate the canvas to get a more comfortable angle for your strokes. Now it's time to bring in some classic grays. Pick a shade from the Warm Grays palette. This shade will calm down and pull together the bold strokes underneath. The green tones still show through the gray layer, so none of the previous work is lost. This creates a rich play of smooth color transitions. If you look closely at the reference, you'll notice subtle streaks running down from the pot. Suggest them with a few vertical strokes to capture that texture. Pick a darker gray and add a few strokes next to the pot. You can slightly reduce the brush size. These darker marks blend naturally into the previous fill. Thanks to all the layered transitions, the wall surface already feels rich and alive, forming a solid base for new accents. At this point, you can decide how much you want to enrich the surface with additional textured strokes. Use free, sketchy strokes. They beautifully capture the wall's lively texture. The wall in the reference looks grainy, almost as if it's made of tiny dots. The goal isn't to recreate that literally. The texture is expressed through brushstrokes instead. Control the stroke intensity through pressure. In some areas it can be dense and saturated, while in others light and transparent. A softer touch keeps the color translucent, letting the yellow-green tone show through. With these brushes, pressure becomes just as expressive tool as color itself. Keep building up the darker patches. This follows the same principle of endless layering of strokes that was covered back in the first lesson. The reference shows a cool gray with a subtle bluish undertone. Add a few light patches of that color. Developing the skill to observe and catch such subtle nuances truly enhances the richness of the artwork. And to finish this part, add one more slightly darker shade. There seems to be a touch of olive green in this area. Switch over to brush number 1 to apply it. Once this color is applied, it becomes clear that it's a bit too saturated. A softer tone works better, something like this one. Use small, careful touches to mark the dark area where the wall meets the ground. As soon as a sense of depth appears, the whole composition instantly feels more complete. Once the foliage comes in, the green will come alive and blend naturally with other green tones. Add a bit of this shade deeper in between the pot and the step. Add a couple of lines to bring out the pipe. Now switch to the dyeing brush and pick a warm gray tone. Just like the small strokes and spots added on the door and its frame, place similar accents on the wall. This will enrich the texture and give it the feel of an aged surface. That's a good place to stop with the wall for now. Now return to the door layer and work on the window. There's no need to overcomplicate things here. Just pick a dark gray tone. Using the same dyeing brush, lay down a patch of color, leaving the edges slightly unpainted. Those gaps are what create that authentic marker look. Use the same color to paint the pipe. Don't make the line too even or solid. Let it break and vary in intensity. To finish, add a couple of small dots for a more graphic feel. If needed, slightly refine the outlines of the objects. Use light, sketchy strokes to add a shadow below the step and a soft cast shadow from the right pot. To emphasize the shadow above the step, pick a color close to the wall tone. This brown will softly bring out the volume you need. Use quick shape to draw the line. If needed, do the same for the bottom step as well. You can also subtly bring out the edge between the door frame and the wall, but keep the contrast gentle. Add cast shadows under the wall objects. You can also drop in a few abstract lines to support the overall geometry of the shapes. Along the line where the wall meets the ground, add a few small dots, as if there are small stones or surface imperfections there. Also, notice the dark object to the right of the rectangular panel. You can suggest it with a loose patch of color. To keep the balance, bring the same brown tone into the left side of the composition. Hide the reference for a moment and take a look at the result. Now it's time to move on to the window. Make the glass slightly more blue than in the reference. Switch to brush number 1 and pick a calm blue tone. Add a few light strokes without trying to cover the entire surface. Then switch to a cool gray and place some soft shadows. Since the window isn't a main focal point, a few delicate shadows will be enough. The window frames have a reddish tint, so it's better to use a red-brown tone. Draw them, keeping a narrow unpainted strip between the two frames. The fine tip brush is perfect for this task. It's much easier to use for drawing clean, precise lines. Use quick shape when necessary. Giving some architectural elements a sharper, more defined look can create a nice contrast with the sketchy areas. Switch back to brush number 1 and pick a deep dark brown. With wide, confident strokes, define the main shadow areas. Make the left panel darker. It appears significantly deeper in the reference. For the thinner areas, reduce the brush size and work more delicately. If the gap between the panels looks a bit too harsh, then soften it up. Then grab a darker tone, almost black, like this one from the RV palette, and use it to darken the top areas where the shadows are heaviest. If the color still doesn't feel dark enough for deep shadows, pick a darker shade to strengthen the contrast. Finally, take a cool gray and add a few quick strokes to enhance the shadows in the glass. Once deep shadows start to appear, it's important to balance them across other elements. Strengthen the shadows on the door with a deep brown. But as you apply it, you may find that an even darker shade will work better. Use short, careful strokes to enhance the darkest parts of the door. Scatter this color across the door with small dotted touches and slightly deepen the tone near the bottom. These quick dark touches help refine the form and make the volumes read more clearly. Use the same tone to shade the inner parts of both pots, the left and the right one. At this point, you can see that the glass on the door is missing some darker tones. As a final touch, take a deep warm gray and apply it in abstract strokes to enrich the shadow effect. Try to place these strokes in the same manner as the previous ones, so they blend seamlessly into the glass surface. That way, the shadows feel naturally integrated. The goal is to enhance the depth without breaking the overall character of the texture. The main work is finished, so let's take a moment to reflect. Was this lesson more challenging or more relaxing compared to the previous ones? Either way, the idea of adding subtle color tints plays a big role here. When you add a slight color tint, it gives the surface more mood. It helps the gray interact with surrounding colors, reflect the environment, and be more eye-catching. If you've been enjoying this series, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, where we will move on to the foliage, the most lively and joyful part of the scene. You'll learn how to capture its character with abstract color shapes and light, sketchy movements. If something wasn't clear or you just want to share your thoughts, write in the comments. And see you in the next video.